Alright, you guys, this episode of Hip Hop Hot Seats about the Young Thug and Gunna indictment. The feds seem to be somewhat on a roll right now, as it appears that they're dropping more indictments on more African American rappers while prosecuting those that are already caught up. One of the latest victims is Houston-based rapper OMB Bloodbath. OMB Bloodbath has allegedly been indicted on RICO charges that stem from her involvement for allegedly aiding a violent gang in a murder. OMB Bloodbath, whose real name is Alexandra Nix, is allegedly part of the 100% Third Ward Gang and is recognized as the gang's purported leader. That's right, a female keyholder. That's what makes this case even more unique, is the fact that OMB Bloodbath is a female and she's recognized as the 100% Third Ward's purported leader. Not to get off track, but I got a burning question maybe some of you could shed some light on for me. What is it that happens with some of these young successful rappers? They start making a lot of money and then they start committing fashion felonies. Seriously, some of the clothes they wear is crazy. It's either too busy, too tight, the colors are all bad, or it's just a disaster all the way around. And some of the court transcripts that were made public, OMB and other members of the 103 gang allegedly murdered a man named Sam Johnson in October of 2017. The victim, Johnson, was found lying in front of a residential home in Houston, Texas, and police apparently found the shell casings from the shooting in close proximity on a street nearby. According to investigators, OMB allegedly orchestrated numerous violent crimes with members of the 103 gang. Following these crimes, these guys then made some of the critical common mistakes that a lot of us end up making. They used little or no discretion on the jail's monitored phones while investigators sat back and recorded it all. In fact, the crux of the information being used to tie OMB to the murder and some of the other incidents are all based off of incriminating statements and conversations that were intercepted while some of those arrested were still in custody at the Harris County Jail. One of the intercepted calls was between a known 103 gang leader locked up in the Harris County Jail and OMB Bloodbath herself. In this particular call, she makes an incriminating reference about the hit on Johnson. You're going to have some good news in the morning when you turn on channel 13, OMB Bloodbath allegedly told the incarcerated gang leader. She was obviously making reference to the murder of Johnson. Then she allegedly informed the leader of her upcoming record deal and furthermore advised him that she'd pay off the youngins to pull off the hit on Johnson. She was definitely a writer, but unfortunately for her, they were recording these conversations. On October 16, 2017, Sam Johnson was murdered by several gunmen and was found by police lying in front of a yard of a residence in Houston. Another victim in the shooting that lived was identified as an alleged member of Young Scott Block. Surveillance footage shows the drive-by shooting take place when an alleged stolen Mazda pulled up alongside Johnson and opened fire. 4 men jumped out of the Mazda and fled on foot after crashing into a ditch. The group then stole another vehicle while throwing a woman and her infant out of an idling Kia Sedona. Houston police later obtained a warrant and searched through the Instagram DMs of the suspected gunman and found conversations with Bloodbath allegedly tied to the shooting. The 29-year-old rapper was signed to Love Renaissance via Interscope Records and put out an EP titled Remedies to Infinity last September. OMB Bloodbath is being held on one RICO count for aiding and abetting in Johnson's murder, along with other gang-related charges. Meanwhile, the charges against Young Thug build on a growing trend of criminalizing rap crews. Last week, the Gwinnett County District Attorney wasn't the only district attorney in Atlanta trying a high-profile RICO case against a prominent rap artist. Dozens of members from both the 5-6 gang and the Drug Rich gang were indicted on a multitude of charges stemming from their participation in conspiring, furthering, and promoting their criminal enterprise online. At the same time, the Fulton County District Attorney in Atlanta charged rappers Young Thug and Gunna with an indictment of more than 80 pages for allegedly participating in street gang activities and violating RICO law. That's short for Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organization, a law that was originally designed to fight organized crime like the mafia. The indictment names Young Slime Life, Young Thug's rap collective, as a street gang and the rapper as its founder. But these latest charges and arrests fit within a larger web of how the criminal justice system is now using RICO to prosecute hip-hop artists around the globe. But these latest charges and arrests fit within a larger web of how the criminal justice system is now using RICO to prosecute hip-hop artists across the globe. This is a trend that's really loud right now in the public consciousness. People are seeing more and more rappers getting indicted for what's either a connection to gangs, drugs, or weapons, or all three. This is nothing new, however. Rappers have been getting targeted by law enforcement. How many times do you remember seeing Tupac in the news? Of course, there's always going to be those naysayers who are going to say that it was rappers like Tupac who self-inflicted a lot of his legal troubles. But that's an open argument. That's a matter of opinion. What's happening now is that the rappers themselves are just fodder for the bigger picture of a practice that comes down to the criminalizing of hip-hop or just black music in general. It's a pattern that stretches way back, far in American history. When it comes to rap lyrics being put on trial, just last year, the state of Maryland's highest appeal court ruled that the lyrics are admissible as evidence in criminal cases. This decision stemmed from a murder case conviction where the defendant was sentenced to 50 years. His lyrics, which he rapped over a jail payphone 3 weeks before the start of his trial, were taken by the judge as a criminal confession. Meanwhile, in New York, there's a bill being introduced to actually limit the use of rap lyrics being used in criminal cases as evidence. But this bill is still being debated in the New York Senate. In 2019, the Supreme Court refused to hear a lyrics on trial case despite a lot of big name artists like Chance the Rapper, Meek Mill, and Killer Mike all pushing for it. Decisions like these continue to set legal precedents, and because it happens almost exclusively in hip-hop, it's almost impossible to see it through a lens other than a racial one. And trust me, I say that with much restraint, because when it comes to the political specter of certain issues pertaining to minorities, the race card is the last card I'll play. It tends to create stumbling blocks and interference, but when something becomes a trend and it clearly becomes obvious, then I call it how I see it. So according to the indictment that charged the Atlanta rappers Young Thug and Gunna, they are being accused of co-founding a violent street gang that committed multiple murders, shootings, and carjackings roughly over a decade and promoted its activities in songs and on social media. Similar to how the Gwinnett County District Attorney Patsy Austin Gatson charged members of the drug-rich gang with the complex and detailed RICO, the indictment against Young Thug, Gunna, and Young Slime Life allege a sprawling of parallels that charges with racketeering. The 88-page indictment filed in Georgia's Fulton County quotes multiple music videos as evidence and accuses alleged gang members of targeting other high-profile rap artists. Young Thug, whose government name is Jeffrey Lamar Williams, co-wrote the hit This Is America with Childish Gambino, making history when it became the first hip-hop track to win the Song of the Year Grammy in 2019. Fulton County prosecutor Fannie Willis said that in late 2012, he and 2 others founded Young Slime Life, a violent criminal street gang that's commonly known as YSL and is affiliated with the National Bloods gang. Young Thug was arrested at his home in Buckhead, an upscale neighborhood north of downtown Atlanta. He was being held at the Fulton County Jail on charges of conspiracy to violate Georgia's RICO Act and participation in a criminal street gang. Young Thug's lawyer, Brian Steele, told news outlets that Young Thug committed no crime whatsoever and he would fight till his last drop of blood to clear him. Also charged in the indictment were rapper Gunna, whose real name is Sergio Kitchens, and another aspiring rapper, Christian Eppinger, who was already in jail and is accused of shooting an Atlanta police officer 6 times in February. Gunna is accused of conspiring to violate the state's RICO Act. In addition to specific charges, the indictment includes a wide-ranging list of 181 acts that prosecutors say were committed starting in 2013 as part of the alleged RICO conspiracy to further the gang's interest. According to the indictment, in 2015, Young Thug rented an Infiniti sedan that 5 alleged gang members used when they shot and killed a rival gang member. In 2017, Young Thug and Gunna had methamphetamine, hydrocodone, and marijuana that they intended to distribute, and were involved in a traffic stop the following year in which one of the vehicles had numerous weapons with high-capacity magazines, including an AK-47 according to the indictment. It quotes lyrics from multiple music video appearances by Young Thug, including one from 2018 in which he says, "I never killed anybody, but I got something to do with that body, and I told them to shoot 100 rounds. Again, another example of a prominent rapper using his platform to brag and boast about his crimes. Willis said she respects the First Amendment right to free speech, but she believes the song lyrics cited in the indictment are overt and predicate acts that support the RICO charge. For all you young aspiring rappers out there, take heed to what's going on while you can. Rap is sometimes used to express poetic expressions, and it's a way artists use to express who they are. But just keep in mind that law enforcement is also listening, and what you might think is talking between the lines is often easily deciphered by everybody, including the feds. The First Amendment does not protect people from prosecution. It protects your right to free speech and nothing more." The indictment also accuses members of the gang of trying to kill rapper YFN Lucci, whose given name is Rayshawn Burnett, by stabbing at him with a shank in the Fulton County Jail. YFN Lucci was among a dozen people charged in another gang-related RICO indictment in Fulton County a year ago. The indictment also says it was an alleged member of the gang who shot at a bus in 2015 that was carrying rapper Lil Wayne. Willis said she plans to seek the maximum possible penalties for the people charged in the indictment. For at least some of them, that could mean life in prison. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of Hip Hop Hot Seat. This was just a quick recap on the indictment charging Slim Thug and Gunna with RICO charges. Tomorrow, we'll have another episode on some of the latest issues taking place in the urban hip hop scene. As always, we appreciate everyone who tapped in. We appreciate the support, and we appreciate all the feedback you guys give us, as it only helps us become better.